who better to talk to after a big decision is made like this by the Cleveland Browns, and a man who had to make big decisions like this all the time as an NFL head coach. ESPN analyst Herm Edwards joins us now here on Westwood One Sports. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, the Brown situation is very interesting. I was always a big believer in listening to your eyes, and my eyes tell me that I don't know if Shedeur, talent-wise, is a better quarterback than Watson, that played, 4 or 5 years ago when he was at his best. Mm-hmm. But I'm surprised, a little bit surprised that they go with Deshaun. After his interview, I mean, I just felt like he was a beaten guy, that he didn't have any, he didn't have any life in his body. When he talked about the fans booing him, and he's got every game he plays now, he's got 17 away games. I mean, that's that's not how you start the season off with your quarterback. But hey, coach made the decision. That's where they're going.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe too, Herm, that there probably weren't more cooks in the kitchen on this one helping Todd Monken make this decision. We know that the Browns are in a weird spot financially and with the cap if they were to decide to move on from Deshaun Watson at this point. Just in your experience, how messy can a big decision like this get between a coach and his front office and his ownership when they want to be involved in a decision that really should be 110% purely the coach's decision?
Well, I mean, that is right now the history of the Browns. This is why they sit in this situation, to be quite honest. I mean, at one time, I think it was last year or the year before, they had 5 quarterbacks. Going into camp, I said, how do you have 5 quarterbacks? I said, how do you do that? It's impossible. All these guys can't get reps, and they still don't know who the quarterback is. And I think at the end of the season, obviously Shedeur will probably play if this team doesn't obviously win. And then from there, they'll evaluate Shedeur and ask themselves this question. There's 7 quarterbacks in college football that are coming out this year. Are they in line to draft one of those guys?
Yeah, and you would think, knowing how the Browns operate, Herm, they'll probably go back to that. Well, you mentioned how they had 5 quarterbacks on the roster at one point last year. Right down the road from Cleveland and Pittsburgh, they got 4 quarterbacks right now, and they may end up keeping all 4 on the roster. Mike McCarthy said this morning he hasn't been a part of any decisions being made about their 53-man roster yet, but you got 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, you got established veteran backup quarterback Mason Rudolph, and then 2 young guys, Will Howard, who didn't look great Friday night against the Jets, and Drew Aller, who they just took in this year's draft and has looked better than Howard to this point. How do they balance? It's a near impossible proposition balancing now and the future when you're managing an NFL roster. How do you think the Steelers balance this, knowing that they've got the last year of Rodgers, but they've also got to find the future at the same time?
Yeah, well, this is why they're hopeful that the other 3 guys, one of these guys becomes the guy that they want after Aaron retires. And I think this might be it for Aaron, to be quite honest. So with that being said, can you keep 4 of them? You can. I mean, you can put some. Now, somebody might come in and grab one of them if you don't hide him and you don't, practice squad player. But to put him on the 53, I mean, that's, put 4 quarterbacks on the 53 so no one comes and gets them. I mean, that's tough to do because of roster size, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that thing plays out. And maybe they feel like out of the 3 behind Rodgers, one of these guys is the guy, but they haven't decided who that is yet.
Herm Edwards, legendary head coach, both at the NFL and college levels with ESPN now, with us here on Westwood One Sports today, getting ready for week 3 of the NFL preseason. The team the Steelers played on Friday night, your former team, the Jets. Geno Smith actually looked really good on that first drive, Coach. I mean, 7-7. Cade Klubnik came in after that. He looked pretty good. You got Frank Reich at the helm of the offense now. Is there reason to believe that if Geno just does what Geno's capable of and doesn't try to do too much, that this Jets offense might finally start to gel if Breece Hall can stay healthy, Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor, all these weapons now at their disposal. Could the Jets shock some people this fall?
I'm hopeful. As you mentioned, Geno gave him some life. Geno played well. Now, I get it. It's a preseason game, but it doesn't matter. It's still a game, and that's all you can evaluate is what you see on the tape. He was very accurate with the ball, knew where to go with the ball, and I think Frank Reich is, understands Geno and can get him going early, because that's the whole key as the play caller with quarterbacks, and especially veteran guys. I mean, Frank, he spoken to Geno. He kind of called plays where Geno felt comfortable, and that's always a good thing. So, they got a talented team, the Jets. They got a lot of talented players now. And, I think they're going to be much improved. I say they win at least 8 games. But the division, can they beat New England? Can they beat Buffalo? Miami's kind of in that situation. They're trying to find their way. But I do think they'll be a better football team, the Jets.
You mentioned the Patriots. I know a lot of people look at New England, Coach, and they say, look at the schedule they had last year. And Mike Vrabel, I think, has tried to stay on top of his guys and motivating them by talking about, this isn't an especially deep roster, but they go out and they get A.J. Brown. And that doesn't change everything, but it changes a lot of calculus on the offensive side of the ball. How much is required of Drake Maye in taking yet another step forward this year for New England to prove to everybody that they weren't just a product of a soft schedule last year? Well, yeah,
that is all the talk, and this is what we do on the off season. We try to find things to talk about before the season starts, and obviously the schedule, who you play and how you play is kind of important, and the schedule is a little bit tougher, but this New England team, I mean, they seem to be a team that's put together with a lot of guys that believe in what they do, and that's probably the most important thing. And getting A.J. Brown, that's what I want to see. How is that romance gonna turn out, right? I mean, right now he's being nice. He's on the sideline. It's preseason. All these veteran guys, I laugh at it anymore. They wear their baseball hats like they're baseball players. They don't play football anymore in the preseason. It baffles me. It really does. Because I truly believe this. The first 4 games of the season, they count. It's almost like a wash. You really don't know who you are when you don't play your players. You don't know who you are. No one knows. You're kind of sitting there wondering, are we any good? I got to get these guys ready to play. Well, the first 4 regular season games, they count now. But they're like preseason games because you're trying to figure out who you are, right? I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's something to watch as the game has progressed, how September has almost become, I don't want to call it a tune-up period because like you said, the games still count, but it's really everybody sort of searching for an identity, trying to figure out if what they want to do is really going to work.
Correct. I mean, and so you got a chance, and you're hoping, and like some of these teams are playing division games early, and that's never good. See, for me, if this is how it's going to go, I've always said the league's got to figure it out. And if you're an owner, you're sitting at these owners' meetings, go, hey, wait a minute, first 4 games, we can't have division games. They mean too much. They're too important because those things early, all of a sudden, you're a team that's trying to find yourself. And you're playing division games, you play 2 division games and you lose those, that hurts you at the end. Because remember, you build your team through the draft and free agency trying to win your division. Those are important games. They're all important, but the division game? So for me, I would say, hey, look, if I was an owner, I'd say, you know what? We don't need any division games the first month of football.
It's actually a great idea. Herm Edwards with us here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Costos today here on You Better You Bet. And what I've noticed through the first couple weeks of the preseason, Herm, is as injuries start to pile up, they're piling up in uncomfortable spots for contenders, in particular along the offensive line. We saw... it felt like the Ravens were searching for a starting center and they'd finally settled on one. He gets hurt. Tyler Biadasz gets hurt for the Chargers. You've got offensive line injuries and question marks starting to mount in Detroit. Just how hamstringing an effect can it be on an offense as you're trying to build chemistry and rhythm throughout training camp in the preseason to then all of a sudden think you've got your 5 guys up front and you've got to start to reshuffle that deck?
Yeah, that's tough because those guys play together, and it's funny you talk about injuries, and this is just my pet peeve on all this. More guys are getting injured in practice than they are in preseason games. But the guys don't want to play in the preseason games. It's like, this is baffling to me. I mean, we see injuries every day now, and guys aren't playing. They get hurt in practice. And I always said this, that's football. Guys get hurt. And we think these preseason, I got to protect him from the preseason because he's going to get hurt. There's more guys getting hurt in practice than there are guys playing in games. That's football. I know. I played it.
What do you think the solution is? Because we heard multiple players. I saw Saquon say it on Thursday or Friday. He doesn't really like these joint practices. And this is where you see a lot of this stuff happening. You see fights, you see skirmishes, guys getting rolled up on. What is the solution? In a world where eventually, and we all know it's going to happen eventually, we're going to get to 18 regular season games, and they'll probably cut down the preseason to just 2. And teams are going to have more and more of these joint practices and controlled scrimmages. Is there a fix for players getting hurt? Because I looked at it myself, and over the weekend I thought, why don't coaches, like you said, play your players in the games where it's at least a more controlled environment? You got 9 officials out there rather than 2 or 3 trying to police an entire 200-man joint practice. Is that the answer that you think some coaches come around to? Use the joint practices for the depth guys and let your starters get their reps in the preseason?
Yeah, that's what they do, and there's something to that. Have joint practices. I think it's good. But football's different than it used to be. I mean, it just is, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but I just think you got to handle it different. And I just believe this. I really do. And they'll say, "Well, coach is old. He's just an old school guy." Well, I don't know about being an old school guy. I do know this. The last time I checked, you know what football players do? They play football. You play football. That's what you do. You signed on to play football. And when the off season comes, you don't play football. You got almost 5-6 months. You don't play any football. But when it's time to go practice and play football, that's what you signed on to do. You need to go do that. And I say that as a guy that played football at that level, right? My claim to fame, I tell people all the time, it wasn't, playing for that long. And, you know what my claim to fame was? Never missing a practice. Never missing a start. That was my claim to fame. And that was intentional because I said, I'm a football player. This is what I do. Don't tell me it's the preseason. I could care less. Football practice, I'm going to practice football. When the game starts, I'm going to play in the game. This is football. That's what you do. You don't wear your baseball hat. You say, hey, man, I'll wait till the regular season and I'll play. What are you talking about? You signed on to play football. Football is not a career. That's what these guys don't understand. It's not a career. You can't say I'm going to play 10 years. You're day-to-day as a football player. Day-to-day. And when you have a chance to go play football, go play football.
So that brings up an interesting question. I want to pivot in a different direction here. Coach Herm Edwards is with us on Westwood One Sports. I think you make a great point. You never know when the end is going to come, right? Like it might be a 10-year career. It might be a 2-year career. So I find it interesting when we see players like Daquan Wright, who gets released by the Browns, and he decides because he's been granted due to an injunction this 5th year of eligibility, right? He can go back now. He's going to go play at LSU this year. I personally totally understand the decision that Daquan Wright and any other players that decide to go down this path are making because it's fighting, scratching, and clawing to stay on a practice squad and make $13,000 a week, or going back to college where you can now get paid a few $100,000 and you've got greater job security. How does this strike, though, the old school ball coach, Herm Edwards, who's like, no, wait, once you get to the NFL, you stay in the NFL? How have you tried to reconcile both sides of that as you've seen this play out over the last couple of days?
I get it. I tell you this. When a guy does that, you know what it tells me? He wants to play football. He wants to play football. And he's going to do everything in his power to try to play football as long as he can. I'm okay with that. I really am. I just am. And for me, the college athlete anymore, he's just he's not a professional yet, but he's paid like a professional, right?
Mm-hmm.
In all sports. I get that too. I get it. It finally happened, and you saw it coming. We all saw this coming. And,
yep.
the NCAA and everybody was fighting it. As long as they could fight it, it's over. You're paying the players now. You pay the players. How about that? How about that novelty? You pay these college athletes rather than room and board and a scholarship and books and tuition. And I get it. But now you got to pay them. If you want some good players, you got to pay them.
Yeah, I mean, the college football for 3/4 of a century, Coach, served as a free minor league system to the NFL. And now, well, maybe it's coming around and biting the NFL on the rear end just a little bit, and that some players are going to look at it and say, I got greater job security if I can go back to college for another year. I mean, it's funny to me, we didn't level the same criticisms that, for example, Dante Moore, when he decided pre-draft, I understand pre-draft, but he decided, no, I'm going back to Oregon for another year because he knew he could make more money in Eugene than he would in the NFL.
I mean, really, the NFL, if you're an NFL coach or you work in that organization, you're going to get a more mature player coming out of college. Because a lot of these guys are going to stay. They're going to stay. They're going to play 4 years. They're going to be fifth-year seniors, some of these guys. You get a 22-year-old rather than a 19, 20-year-old guy and wants to leave early, go to the NFL. Now they stay in college. That's good for college. Good for the NFL, too. You get an older, more mature player. And you know what else you get? I hate to say this. When they come to the NFL, they never had money, a lot of these guys. And they get money. Just dealing with that is a headache. Well, now that clock starts earlier. It starts in college. So, it's just, there's a lot to this.
Herm, I love your insights. Love catching up with you today. Can't wait to talk to you again at some point later down the road, maybe during the regular season. Thanks so much for getting up early with us here on You Better You Bet. Enjoy the rest of the preseason and the launch into the regular season. Thanks again for the time.
Yeah, I'm about to go. I'm getting ready to go back to Bristol. I'm ready to go to work. So we got it. It's football time.